And we are started? Are we live?
And we are live. Welcome to Live Coding Happy Hour for March 10th. Yeah, it's the 10th, 2017. I am Josh Neary. I'm a developer evangelist here at ServiceNow, and I have some feedback coming from one of my windows. So let me go ahead and mute that. There we go.
Is that me or is that you?
So
every week.
Yeah, every week we have a new technical fun thing to deal with. So this week we're on yet another brand new setup. We're basically going through and discarding setups one after the next and seeing how things go. So let us know how you like it this time around. We'll hopefully have a smooth experience. So with me today,
I'm Chuck Tomasi, platform architect with the platform practice team at ServiceNow. Been here about 7 years. Have a lot of fun, build some apps, solve problems for customers, and always look forward to Friday afternoon. I don't know about you, Josh, but I find myself looking through my refrigerator during the week saying, no, I've got to save that for Friday. I'm going to drink this tonight. No, wait, maybe that would be better for Friday. I'm planning my beer schedule around Live Coding Happy Hour now.
You and me both. I absolutely make that sort of decision. I think it was last week. It was the weird beer that I couldn't show on the screen, and I'm like, I am saving that one. I'm not going to do that until Friday. So Dave's not with us today. We wish he could be here. Similar to last week, he is actually on a plane right now. He is on his way back from India. He was there throughout this week for the developer days in Bangalore and Hyderabad. So again, safe travels to you, Dave, and hopefully he'll be back with us next time around.
We applaud the effort.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, some great work. I think some fantastic feedback. He shared some photos, and it looks like it was a great time. So this is Happy Hour, Chuck. What are you drinking this week?
I have Dos Equis, the standard green bottle. Good old standby. Always works well with Mexican food.
Good stuff. Good stuff. This week I've had this on Live Coding before. I've got the Poet Oatmeal Stout from New Holland Brewing Company, and it's delicious.
I don't always patch my code, but when I do, it's in production.
And with that, Chuck, you got an API of the week for us.
I do have an API of the week. Let me bring that up real quick. And my API of the week actually changed halfway through the week.
All right.
I started on one, but come on, Skype, where'd it go? This is the fun of doing multiple things. Share screen. Okay.
Go ahead and
you got it.
My camera. It's working its way through.
Ding. Oh, I got to hit start here. Start the right screen. Start that one. Yeah, there's always something, isn't there?
And then if you turn off your camera, it will turn into unless you want to be on camera. That is up to you.
No, I don't think I want to be on camera. Let's go back to Skype and go to the static picture of me with a bow tie. Your video's turned off. Hooray. Okay, now we have studio, correct? I don't think I want to be on camera.
There we go.
All right. Don't forget to mute your YouTube.
Yeah. It's just...
It's crazy time.
So many audio sources everywhere. I have no idea what's going on.
Welcome to my world. I'm glad you have it this week. This week, I'm going to be talking about the gs.action.getGlideURI. Also, we're just going to shorten that up to just GlideURI. This is a way to get your hands on stuff in the URI from, when you specify sysparm query equals something in a UI page or a UI action or wherever you're going, your record, your server side code has the ability to get at that information very easily. This is a globally available and scoped available, because I'm going to show you, I'm in a scoped app right now, hence being in studio. But I could also equally take the GS action, this part, and say scoped GlideURI, new scoped GlideURI. I'm sorry, I have to instantiate that. That is effectively the same. This part only works in scoped apps, though. Same methods, and I'm trying to find a value for why I'd want to do a new scoped GlideURI instead of what I just had up there. Let's just paste that back in. Paste, done. This one, which works in both. So we're still working out the nuances with this with our developers. But once I've got this object instantiated, I am going to simply do a gs.add info message original URI equals and print that out. URI to string. There is a toString method. This is not a string. or another object that I'm saying toString, this is a method specific to that. Do my old trick of select all shift tab to align things, save this. This is a display business rule that is going to display at the top of this, wait for that to save, at the top of this record on this table. So if I reload the form, I could hook this up to UI action. I could hook this up in a workflow. Lots of different places where I can get at this. Come on, browser. Welcome back. Let's do a reload form. There we go.
I think I can.
And I don't know why I didn't add error message, but it certainly stands out better than add info message. But here's my original URI, and you can see it had the table, .do, a sysid to tell me to bring up the specific record, sysparm record target, da 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 da. Now I can add to this. Let's say somewhere in my script I want to set a new parameter, okay? Or I want to get at one of those specific ones. I can do a get and set method to pull that all apart. And I don't have to parse on ampersands, and I don't have to worry about decoding things. I'm just going to build this out real quick. This is the
that looks really useful.
It is really useful. Instead of doing the rp.get parameter or whatever that funky stuff is that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. Mm-hmm. This is I'm going to first do a URI get on sysparm record target. I'm not sure exactly what that does. I think it's the same as the table. And this URI.get file from path also tells me the table. So these will have similar output, but I'm just getting at different parameters different ways. And I can also do a set on a parameter. Let's call one sysparm chuck. And today I'm not feeling very energetic, so we'll set the value to inactive. And then if I want to get that, even right after I set it, I can get at it. But I can, and maybe I want to pass the whole thing back modified with my new parameter to say an action.setRedirectURL. So that's just my quick and dirty little use case. I should see several messages out of here. The big pink one with the original string on top. And click. This window is being really slow for some reason. Click. You have to have an audible click. Waiting for the other window to finish saving. There we go. Reload. So sysparm record target, as we can see from the full URL, is x66 238-bit input. Yep, that's right. If I do a get file from path, that's actually this first part up here. I don't know if they're ever different or not. I've never even bothered to learn what sysparm record target was all about. And then I can set between this one and this one is where I set my sysparm chuck. Oops, my add info message says record chuck. It's actually sysparm under chuck. But there's the value, and then here it is in the whole thing when I do another toString at the end. So maybe I want to take this thing apart, find out certain values, set certain values, pass it back to gs.redirect or action.setRedirectURL to go to another page at the end with my new and improved parameters. Easy to do with the gs.action.getGlideURI. That's a mouthful.
Very cool.
My API of the week.
Very good. Yeah, thank you for that, Chuck. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times that I've written weird code where I'm splitting on various values and manually pulling out that stuff. That is going to make that a lot easier.
And maybe next week we'll do the client-side version of this.
Yeah, I like that. Cool. So, all right, let's go ahead.
Your turn.
My turn. I will go to our loading screen here that everybody can see while we're reshuffling things a little bit. Let me share my screen.
The please stand by message.
Reticulating Splines. Here we go.
I think I'm changing a screen door with that phrase or something.
I think that was that came into being into popularity as a loading message with some of the older Maxis games, if I remember correctly. And it has nothing to do with them, so there's no copyright issues or things like that. It's a generic concept. But today we are reticulating splines. So let's go back to our main Skype window and let me know. Can you see my studio?
I can.
All right. So this week we are returning to OAuth. And we've talked about OAuth a couple of times. I think it was back in September. We had 2 sessions about OAuth. The first one, we talked about Bitly and how you could set up OAuth client in ServiceNow that would actually go out there and get tokens from Bitly. We also did this with Google. I think it was the YouTube Analytics API and showing some some of the various techniques that you would need to use for that. And at the time, we ran into some issues. We realized that, okay, we figured out how to get tokens, and we've got these tokens associated with a REST message or a method. But then we had some challenges actually programmatically getting those tokens in our code. And so we had some weird hacks that we kind of worked through on those live coding happy hours.
Was that the global script include to make offline work with YouTube, Google?
Yeah, that was one of them. Yeah, we had to do the global script include thing. And then on top of that, we were going out there and we were querying the credential table, the OAuth credential table, and it just didn't feel very nice. And then the other thing that we didn't really talk about that day is that, those are things that work well for a server-to-server integration. So we want to go out there and we want to generate bit.ly links from a central user, or we want to go out there and we want to pull down this analytics data as a central user. But that doesn't deal with situations where you maybe want to interact with an API as the user logged into ServiceNow. So a good example of this might be you want to build an integration to GitHub. And when you're interacting with GitHub, you probably want to interact with your repositories, not everybody else's. Sure. Or, you could theoretically say, well, we've got a centralized GitHub account. But for the purposes of today's live coding happy hour, we're going to assume that you want to interact with these external APIs as the current user. And I didn't know how to do this, and I was working on an app that interacts with, appropriately enough, GitHub, and started to figure out some things specifically related to how do we generate a single OAuth token per user instead of tying that token to the REST message or the method, and the things that are required to do that. So that's what we're going to cover.
That'd be nice.
So to start, as kind of a quick review and as a way of getting things set up, I'm just going to create an app, and LCHH March 10. How's that? And this app is going to become the client for GitHub. And in true live coding happy hour fashion, I have not tested this, and this is I've worked with this API in this way before, but not in this app. And so we are here to explore and break things and fix them. So that's
once again into the maelstrom.
We're here and we're back to true form. Hopefully, if this goes too smoothly, I'll be disappointed as usual. So the first thing we want to do is we need to set up a client. And so I'm just going to go out to GitHub, and actually I'm going to register an application because we need to have an endpoint that we can actually interact with. So I'm just going to create this. And this is going to be LCHH March 10. And we're going to say that the homepage URL is, well, this is a local instance. So this will be an interesting experiment to see how well this works.
You're registering a new OAuth application, not registering a new repo, which I think a lot of people are familiar with.
Yeah, and so what's happening here is when you think about OAuth, what happens is when you authorize access to an external app, generally you're authorizing a particular app. And so in this case, you're not just saying, give me all access to GitHub, it's give me access on behalf of this particular application to GitHub.
Okay.
And so if you were building an app that was some kind of repository management application, for example, you would have to register that repository management application with GitHub. And this is a pretty common thing that you're going to have to do anytime you're dealing with OAuth.
Will this work with a local instance?
We are going to find out.
Okay.
So I got my local instance. Theoretically, it should, because all that's going to happen is after the OAuth flow completes, it's going to redirect to whatever URL we specify. And just pretend you all don't see this client ID and client secret.
Obsolete tomorrow anyway.
I'll revoke them later, so that's fine. But the important thing is now we have an endpoint that we can actually interact with. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that off the screen so you don't see that for too long. Not that it matters, because you can just pause the video and shh. Yeah. So we're going to go into OAuth and application registry, and we want to register a new third-party provider.
Cool.
So we're going to call this GitHub.
Was that there in Helsinki, or is that new to Istanbul?
It is there in Helsinki. Istanbul brings in the Manage Tokens button that didn't used to be there.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So we'll copy in our client ID and our client secret, and these are things that we'll exchange later when we're actually getting access tokens. So that's important. We need to get our token URL, which I'm going to just pull up the GitHub API docs. I'll Google for that because I don't remember off the top of my head what that was. The beautiful thing about GitHub is they have some very nice documentation. It's very easy to find the things that you actually want to find.
I guess.
So we'll pull that in there. So there's our authorization URL. And now we need to find our token URL. It's probably going to end in something like token. Where is it? Where's the token URL? There's authorize. So there's a web application flow. Access token. There we go.
Isn't that what we call ours too? Authorize an access token? Something similar.
It's very similar. Yeah, it's authorize.do, and I think it's OAuth _ authorize.do, or I don't remember. So, and then this is going to be an authorization code flow. And so this is that flow where when you actually do this, you're redirected to that external system and you log in on that site, not your own. And we'll see that in a minute. So, so we've got this, and now we need to create a REST message that we can actually use. And so we're going to go out there and create a REST message. And to make this simple, I'm just going to go and see, I want to pull back my own user info. That's a pretty simple thing to do. So get the authenticated user. And so all we're going to do is hit this endpoint of, what is the endpoint? User. Yeah, I just need to find the base URL.
Is it a derivative of your application?
There we go. It is not. It is not. Okay. So these things will happen on behalf of your application, but not necessarily aware of your application. There's nothing specific to your app that comes into play with these URLs. So they're consistent across the board, which is pretty nice. So we're just getting user, and we'll call this GitHub. I'm just going to call this GitHub, and you'll see why. So I'm going to actually remove that part of the endpoint.
The method to have the user on it.
Yeah, and so here's a really key thing with Istanbul is
you don't have to name everything get.
Yeah,
you can have more than one.
And so now what I can do is I can just put this in the actual method itself, and then we can create more methods and keep them all underneath that message, which is so nice.
Get user, get repo, get no more tokens, get whatever you want.
Yep, exactly. So now we've got, we need to select OAuth 2. Now, actually, what I didn't do is I didn't finish creating your profile, but we're just going to see what happens. I'm just going to try it because I think this is useful, because this is going to be the thing that most people try is they're going to first put those values in and they're going to see what happens, and it might break. So
first get that.
Yep. So what is this doing? This is giving us the redirect URL must match the registered callback. And so what is that telling?
Your callback was localhost.
You know what? That is probably the problem, because this is local. Yeah, I need to fix my redirect URL here. So this is going to be Istanbul p0.local. Yep. And it's not HTTPS, it's HTTP. Which is fine because it's not going over the internet. So let's try that again. And there we go. So this time we actually see that. This is my my alter ego on GitHub is Jan Batman. Just we'll pretend that's not there. And we see that LCHH March 10 by this person wants to access my account. It wants my public data only. And this isn't going to work because I need to be able to get more information. And so later on, I want to be able to interact with repos. And so what I need to do is I need to set up a scope. So let me do that now. And we can do this by going into OAuth Entity Scopes.
Nice.
And we're going to create a new one. We're going to call this GitHub Repo. And the actual scope is just repo.
How you know that?
Because I read the docs. And
that helps. It's time saver, so you don't sit here and watch live coding reading hour.
Yeah, I figured, some of the time that's really boring, so I just read that. If you didn't know what that was, you would have to go into the documentation and look it up. And so now I'm going to associate that scope with this profile. And what this is going to do now is next time I actually click Get No Auth Token, it's going to pass that scope, and now we see that we're reviewing permissions, and it's asking for repositories, public and private.
We covered some of that stuff in the YouTube.
Yeah, we did.
Analytics as well too.
Yeah, if you want more information about that, go back and look for the episode 1 or episode 2 that talk about OAuth, and so I'm not going to explain all that in detail.
Like late September of 16.
Yeah, it was a while ago. So I'm just going to finish this flow, and I'm going to authorize the application. I'm going to type in my password if I remember it. I think I do. apparently I don't. So let me go ahead and copy the password off screen. Give me 1 second here.
Not only do we have your client ID in secret, we have your passwords too.
And that's where it would get bad. That would be a bad thing.
Josh has to change a bunch of passwords.
Is that it? Oh, I know why. It's because...
Two-factor?
No, I'm actually just using the wrong password.
You're not using two-factor?
I am using two-factor. I am.
Oh, okay.
I do have that on, yeah. But no, what was happening was I was trying to log in with my alter ego password and not my real password, which is what I needed.
Gotcha.
So this is coming back, and this is going to highlight an issue that we covered before, and this is in how the responses are handled. And so in this case, it's saying unauthorized because it couldn't actually process the token. I'm going to go off screen here, and I'm going to copy in the processing code that will handle dealing with the response from GitHub. So bear with me 1 moment.
We need another...
We need one of those special script includes is what we need.
Oh, I thought you had a fix for that.
No, so this is unfortunately part of, this is kind of part of the process of building this out. It's very often that you're going to encounter these situations where you're going to have a script, or you're going to have to build a script include to handle
the special response. Was it the header? The response had something in the way that it was responding back. I forgot what it was. YouTube had like an offline mode in the response header that we had to put in there.
Yeah, that was part of it. And in each OAuth endpoint, it might return data in different ways. Okay. And so this, in this case, is doing some stuff that we could probably use GlideURI for, because I'm going out there and I'm splitting this out. But I'm not going to try to do timely. That. Yeah. It seriously was. That was not planned.
It's not feeling that brave. One live coding happy hour challenge at a time.
Yeah, exactly. So now we'll go back to our endpoint. And we're almost at the point where we're going to get into the new stuff. And I need to switch my app back to LCHH. And while I'm doing this, how are we on comments? Anything coming up so far?
Nope. People just listing out what beer they're drinking. And
awesome.
One guy said, sorry for being late. And I said, not a problem.
Cool. I love the fact that people are adding their beers to the list. So that's
shout out to Eric for being a first timer and planning on having a beer at the same time.
Cool. That level of planning I fully approve of. So we've got the custom script included in there now. We're going to go back. We're going to try this one more time. We're going to authorize it. And it just worked. And so one of the things to know, and this is also something that came from the docs that I won't make you read, is GitHub tokens don't expire. So what I did in this script include that I just created a minute ago, that we're not going to spend time worrying about too much, is I set this thing up to expire in like 30 years or something like that. So basically it's going to be good as long as it's out there.
Oh, so normally they would expire. You just changed the expiration on it.
Yeah, because there's no expiration defined or returned. Now, if the endpoint or the OAuth provider returned an expiration, we would honor that. But because there's no expiration returned and we know that it doesn't expire, I'm basically just treating it like a permanent token. So, and that's a GitHub specific thing. So there's always something new and different and, special Snowflaky about each one of these APIs.
That's not the analogy I was thinking of, but I like it.
So now at this point, this is where things get interesting because I've logged in as me, but anybody who calls this REST message in the entire system is going to be calling it as me. And I don't like that. That's not the desired.
Right. Because your fingerprints will be all over the GitHub.
Right. Yeah. And so it's a security issue. Depending on the nature of what it is you're actually building, it just is fundamentally incompatible with probably what some integrations are going to be. Mm-hmm. So to actually make this work the way we want it to, we need to instead generate a token on behalf of a different record in the system. And I didn't know you could do this until I started exploring. And I want to share the exploration process because, that's what we do on this show. So what I did was I went out there and like, well, what happens when you actually click get OAuth token? Because I want to know, like, how is that URL being populated? So I'm just going to go and look at UI actions in the system.
Because right-click edit UI action wasn't working for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know if that works in a
scoped app or in Studio, maybe.
Yeah. So you'll notice that there are two out there. There's one in the message, there's one in the method, and I'm just going to look at the one in the message, but the concept is similar. And what's happening is this is saying that we're defining this thing called a requester sysID, and the requester in this case is the GForm unique value. So what this implies is that the requester is that REST message, and that's important.
Yeah.
And we'll see why. Yeah. Then we've got the profile ID, and the profile is the actual that profile that we defined where we added the scopes. And so this is just telling it, which thing are we going to determine where our scopes come from. The requester context, this is also extremely important, is sysREST message. And so I started thinking, well, what if we changed these? So what if the context was sysuser, and what if the requester sysID was the sysID of a user? What would happen? And so that was kind of the line that I went down. And so that is what we're going to see now. So what I'm going to do to make this easy is create a UI page. I think that's going to be the easiest way to demonstrate this. And we're just going to say GitHub. I'll just call it GitHub for now. We'd probably want to give this a slightly more interesting name.
Oh, it's got a scope on it, so it'll work.
Yeah, March 10 GitHub, there we go. So we'll open that up, and we want a button, and we want this button to launch something. So I'm just going to, let me go and look at something off screen here because I've got some code that I just don't want to make you watch me have to type.
Mm-hmm.
That gets boring, really, really boring. Or you can actually just, we can sit in silence while I look for it, and that's probably worse. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to pull this in and take out the Angular stuff because I don't really want the Angular stuff. And I'm going to say sign into GitHub, so that looks okay. And we want to, let's see, what's the on click for a button? Is it on click? Is it on click?
I mean, by default, what do you want to run? On click will send you to the client script.
I think this will work. So we want initiate. Basically, what we want to say when we click this, we want to run a piece of JavaScript, and then in my client script, I'm going to say function.
That'll run client script. You want to run server side, you do the processing script, but you need to form around that.
The problem I'm running.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You're fine.
Oh, that just came up in the community this last week.
Got it. Okay, so this is actually running. This is what I want. The problem I'm running into is I've been spending so much time in Angular, I'm forgetting my vanilla JavaScript, which is not good.
I'm forgetting jelly. Thank goodness.
Oh yeah, actually that's a feature. Forgetting the jelly is a good thing. So so we've got this thing that we're going to initiate, and in this button, I just want to build out the URL that looks something like this. And so at the end, we're going to do this window.open, and we're going to pop up a window. So let me just start copying this in. Say window.open. We want the OAuth initiator URL to be, it's going to start with that. So let's throw var in front of that. Mm-hmm. So input.do, and then we're going to pass
you got var equals. Hold on, you get an extra equals in there.
Yep, indeed I do. I wonder what happens when you assign to var. Actually, I don't wonder.
It gave you a big X. It's not going to run.
Not going to work at all. It doesn't make sense. So let me populate some things up here. There we go. So requester sysID equals, and just for the sake of this demo, I'm going to get my own sysID. So let me go to my own profile, and let me just copy my sysID.
Okay.
And we obviously want to make this unique. Actually, what is it? G_form.user. What is it?
G under user.
Or yeah, G under user.
Got
user ID. There we go. That's what we want.
Glad that auto-populate is there.
Oh, me too. Well, because on the server side it's get user anyway. Right. So the OAuth profile ID we don't have, so we do need to. We're going to hard code that for now, and we would obviously not want to hard code that in a real scenario. But we're just going to hard code that for now, and we're going to get that by going to the application registry. We're going to go to the OAuth thing, and here is the entity profile. This is what it's referring to. So we will open this and get that sysID. And we will put that in here. And the auto closing quotes that I don't want to actually auto close in this case. Thank you very much.
You're supposed to do the quotes first, then paste. That's the secret.
Yeah, that would probably be good. I'm going to deal with grant type in a minute because I think I need to hard code that as well. Now, in this case, this is where I get to start changing things. So I'm going to say sysuser is the context.
Okay.
And so that's how we're going to build that. Now I want to build the rest of the URL. So let me just go back to that UI action that we were looking at a minute ago. And we want the URL that matches authorization code, which we know because we have specified authorization code grant flow. So let's just paste this in here and then let's make it all work.
Wait. Okay, OAuth password input. I thought, go check that if statement. I think you missed part of it. I think it was OAuth initiator.
It is, but I already have this part. The auth
no, you don't.
Part.
No, the URL. Look, it's /OAuth initiator. You have /OAuth password.
Oh, I do. Yeah. This is why we have two people on the call at all times.
And neither of them are sober.
I'm too sober at this point. I need to get to the Balmer peak. So there we go. The auth initiator, we're passing in the context, which is the requester context, which have we defined the requester context? Yes, we have. It is sysuser.
Yeah, the only thing we don't have right now is grant type, which came from the Scratchpad, but we're going to possibly hard code that. I'm not seeing where that's used.
It's not used. Yeah, it looks like it's not used, so we can just get rid of it. So it's not part of that URL. And then what I'm going to do, I'm not going to actually open this yet. I'm just going to, I know.
Alert it.
Are horrible and ugly, but I'm going to use an alert and see what it looks like.
Be alert, because the world needs more alerts.
What's alert? All right, let's click sign in, and there we go. So this is looking pretty good. Let's make sure it makes sense. There's OAuth. There's the context as user.
There's your user ID.
There's the profile
and response type code.
Cool. Okay, so this is theoretically what we want it to be. So now I will. I'll go ahead and open it. So let's get rid of the alert. And save this. Now, before I do this, I do want to call attention to, I'm going to go into the tokens table because we want to see the difference between the tokens that we're generating.
Okay. And what did we get back so far? We got GitHub LCHH was the one that you authenticated earlier.
Yeah. Right? So this is the one. And if I look at this and I look at the XML, I can see some things. I can see that there's the profile and it's actually referencing, it doesn't have a display value, but this is that profile that we added the scope to a minute ago. We can see that it is associated with a particular user, but even though this user generated it, the context is still not the user. It's still that REST message. So that's going to be the key. Now, actually, let me do this as well. If I go back to the list, I'm going to add some more things to.
There you go.
Here.
Add the user on there.
Yeah, let's add the user. Let's add the
user and the other user. Interestingly enough, those are not reference fields.
Yeah, that is interesting. So this is the interesting part, the requester profile. And if we actually click on that, you can see that it generates one of these things. And so we've got, this is the entity profile that it's referencing. And then the context is this, and this is the user. So this is how it's actually tying a token back to that REST message and how that REST message knows that it has a token. And that comes later when we try to actually do something on behalf of that person. So we've looked at it. Let's go ahead and do it. So we'll refresh, click sign into GitHub. Oh, it actually signed in. So because we already logged in, this is the beauty of OAuth. We already had a GitHub session. So you didn't see me have to log in, but in theory, that actually just worked and generated a token. And we'll go back now and we'll verify that. So let's refresh and look at that. So we've got our new token. Let's sort by created. And if we now look at the requester profile, and I click on that, it's this user. And there's my user ID, which is pretty cool. And the interesting thing about this is now if I go and let me impersonate someone, let me impersonate Abel. I don't know if he's going to have access to this UI page, but we'll find out. So let me refresh this.
Should be. I mean, we didn't have any special ACLs or anything.
No, this looks good. So now I'm going to sign into GitHub. Now the issue here is that we have to suspend disbelief a little bit for a moment because I'm still logged into GitHub as me. So I'm still generating a token as me. But this is it just went out there and it initiated the OAuth flow. Okay. And I'm doing this because what I want to show you is now when I go back to, it says admin.
We should have one as
AbleTutor.
AbleTutor in the user.
There we go. So here's tokens. And there's AbleTutor. And if we actually look at the requester profile,
that's AbleTutor SysID.
Yep, it's a different one. So this is really key. Now, if what I'm going to do is let me do this.
Okay.
I'm going to log into my, I'm just pulling in the Batman.
Normally, on that part where we suspended disbelief, normally Abel would have to give his credentials, right?
Right. And actually, I can show that here because what I'm going to do, this is going to make it easier.
Bring up a different browser? Incognito?
Well, so I have within Chrome, you can actually set up different personas, and they all have their own.
Oh, that's right.
Everything else. So
I almost forget about that.
Yeah, it's extremely helpful. And what I need to do here, actually, this is fine because I'm going to generate a different token, and that token is going to still be associated with me, but it doesn't matter because we're doing it from a different account. And so what I'm demonstrating here is that we're actually creating a token that is not associated with the same account. And so we're going to have two different GitHub accounts that are represented. So I do sign into GitHub, and now it is prompting me again because this user, the Batman user, has not yet authorized the app. So he has to go and authorize it now. So he's authorized it. I'll put in my password. And now if I come back and look at the tokens, let's look at the latest one here. Actually, what happened there is it probably just updated the existing token for system administrator. And that's fine because we basically only want one token for a current user at any given time. So so this is cool, but the next thing is how do we actually conditionally use the right token to make the call or to make a call to GitHub?
Right.
And that's kind of a critical thing. So what I want to do is, let's see, do we have time? It's 4:07. We've got 22 minutes. Yeah. We can make this happen. So what I want to do is I actually want to do an API call. Yep. And in that API call, I'm going to call GitHub and get the credential, or basically get the current user and then return it. And the easiest way to do this in this kind of client application, I'm going to actually do this in a scripted REST API. And the reason for that is because we can centralize, basically we don't want to handle tokens in our browser. We want to be able to delegate that to the server, let the server deal with the tokens, and then return data back. We already know who we are in that UI page. So create a scripted REST API. And we're just going to call this GitHub client or GitHub. I'm just calling it GitHub, whatever. Well, it's probably not a great name for it. We'd want to call it the GitHub proxy or I don't know, something like that. But that's okay. And then what we want is...
That's why we're not in marketing. I can't think of any creative variable names.
What's the thing? It's something like there are only 3 hard problems in computer science.
Naming your variables is one.
Cache invalidation, naming things, and off by 1 errors. Those are the 2 hardest problems.
I got one of those 3 licked.
And to make this easy, I'm just going to create a simple GitHub client script include. And so let's do this because you know what? Sorry, I'm going back and forth. This is really live. I don't have a plan here.
So your script include is going to call the REST service? Is that the idea? Or
no, I was going to actually put my client logic into the script include to say that we're going to bundle up everything that we do to interact with GitHub. We want a script include, and we really would, but because we only have 20 minutes to finish this, I'm just going to embed that logic directly into this method. So we're going to go back to our REST message. And I guess we should probably test it, right?
Yes.
So let's go in, click test. And there we go. So we actually got a response back. So I just wanted to make sure that worked. Now we'll just use the previous script usage because we can cheat and use some pre-generated code for our logic. And we're going to put this into the scripted REST API so that when we call this endpoint from our UI page, this is going to just handle the process of actually going out and getting this stuff. Now, what we need to do here, though, is this is where we need to figure out how to apply the token. And so what we would do is we figured out some things last time about GlideURI token or GlideURI clients, things like that, but we never quite got it working the way we want to. So I'm just going to create a function. I'm going to call this, I guess we'll call it apply token. And we're going to pass in a REST message. And what we want to do is say that the client is new snauth.GlideURI client. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to say that the token, I'll just say var t equals client.get token. And we're going to say gs.get user ID. And then we're going to say, what's the OAuth profile ID? That's what we need to figure out here. The OAuth profile ID is the hard-coded value.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go and get that from our UI page. Where's our UI page?
On the other screen.
Yeah, but I mean the actual definition of it. Oh, there it is. I was just looking right at it. So there's the profile ID. I'm going to pass that in. And obviously we would put that in a system property or something.
Right.
And now that we have that, we can actually, this should have, or should give us the token. So what happens when we call get token is we pass in the profile, basically the contextual ID of who this thing is associated with, and then the actual profile of the OAuth thing that we're trying to interact with. And in this case, because we're dealing with a user, we can just do get user ID. So every time this thing executes, it's going to execute as the currently logged in user and say, get me the token that's associated with me, which is what we want. And now we'll say set request header, authorization bearer, which is, this is what how these tokens work, and then t.get access token. So what we're saying is we're basically, instead of, we might say set basic auth or something like that, we're manually setting the authorization header to the token that is associated with that particular thing. So hopefully that makes sense.
It will in about 6 months when I have to use it for my own purposes.
Yeah, this is one of those things where I have seen a lot of this before, and then I never really understood it until I was trying to implement something. And in the process of trying to implement it, then I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it. This actually is what I want. So
I think my biggest challenge right now is getting my head around the concepts, but that
makes sense. That makes sense. Response is already defined. Oh yeah, so we can't call this thing response because we already have response from the actual method.
Yep.
There we go. And now I'm just gonna blindly trust that this is okay and say return json.parse response body. RESPONSE body. So let's see if that worked. And what I'll do is I will fire this up in REST API Explorer. And I will send the request. And oh my goodness, it actually worked.
Oh,
so
take a drink.
Yes, I'm going to take a drink. That's some good oatmeal stout. So at this point, we've successfully dynamically determined our token. We've gotten our thing. And all that's left to do for today is I just want to actually show what this looks like across two different users that have two different tokens. And so I guess what I'll do, this is where I'm going to, again, push the boundaries of what I can remember in JavaScript, because I Actually, I think I'm just going to try to do this in jQuery if I can. Because on my client script, what I want to do is I want to pull back some data.
Mm-hmm.
How do we do? Where is that? I keep losing my UI page is what I keep doing.
It's the one that says UI page.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good way to look at it. But such things don't matter when you're on a live broadcast. So we're going to do a script. And I don't even remember, is it just...
I'm not the jQuery expert.
Well, we're going to figure this out. So jQuery REST. Is that what we want? I don't really use jQuery. Well, it's actually, no, it's AJAX is what we want. So we're just doing the jQuery AJAX call. By the way,
Okay.
how are we doing on comments? Anything? We're probably having people yelling at us because of...
No. Hey, we've got one question from Apurv. He says, a request for an upcoming LCHH session. How about a cool app that integrates Slack, Jira, ServiceNow to help agile software teams do everything right from their Slack team chat?
Oh, that's cool.
That'd take more than an hour. It's probably a few sessions.
That is a cool idea. jQuery AJAX get. That's what we want. So basically, we're just going to call our scripted REST API and jQuery.get. There's the URL, data. Okay, let's see what happens. And we want, we actually need to figure out what that endpoint is. So let me go back to our REST resource, and we will copy this. That's what we want right there. So we'll get that. And then I think we need to pass something in. What's the callback here? So there's data, success, data type. So I believe the way this works is jQuery is smart enough that if we just pass in a function, it actually detects, it knows. And we're just going to say console.log data. Let's see what happens here. It's also possible, I'm not sure if this is defined globally as jQuery, if we need to do the dollar thing. I know that tends to vary depending on where you're at, but let's just pull up the console log and take a look. Drag that over. So that logged in object, so there's the result. And whoa, this actually worked. So
nice.
That is pretty cool. And what this is doing is so this is going out, it's calling the scripted REST API, it's getting the result back, and it's determining that I'm logged in as this Batman user. Now, what I'm going to do is...
need to test it to somebody else.
I do. So I'm going to... AbleTutor should still have my personal GitHub, so let me go ahead and impersonate him. And I'm going to clear this output and refresh this page. And let's take a look at that object. Results.
Login, JN Batman.
That's still Batman. So that must mean that AbleTutor has the wrong one. So let me just sign in as me. All right, I did that. And now if we look at this again, results, still that. Huh. Well, that doesn't seem right. So let's do this. What I suspect is that because we have done a whole bunch of tokens.
Clear them all out?
Yeah, I'm just going to delete them all. And I'm going to make this cleanly repeatable. Let's go back to admin and tokens. Get rid of everything. All right, so we've got clean credential table. We will refresh this. And theoretically, the first thing we'll see is this should be me because, well, I mean, it should have been me a moment ago, so we'll see.
Should be you as in...
It should be pulling back my
Genius?
GlideURI GitHub. Yeah,
Okay.
because that's who I'm at. Now, what's weird here
No object.
is that, yeah, I'm not getting the object back. So maybe I need to do a hard refresh. Let's try that. So current user, let's see what this thing is telling us.
Any errors in there?
I don't see errors. If I click this, let's look at the response. Did it work? So we're going out there, we're calling GitHub current user. You know, there's an easier way to prove this, and it doesn't involve JavaScript, and that is just calling the thing directly.
Okay.
But that's not giving me anything.
Oh.
So let's see what the Explorer says. That's not giving me anything either.
Ouch.
Well, let's take a look at the tokens. We have a token, so that's good.
We have a token for system administrator.
Right.
That's what you want? Okay.
Yeah, and that should be fine. So
Okay.
what we should be retrieving at this point is I should be making the call as system admin. Even from here, I should be getting that. So there's current user. Let's send that. Huh.
No response.
Interesting.
We got a 200, which means it was authenticated and everybody was happy, but no response.
So the call itself is fine. It's just that we're not getting something back in the actual scripted REST API. So let's take a look. If we look at this code, just make sure it makes sense. So we're passing in the user ID. I think I passed these in the correct order. Let me just make sure. Yeah, I did.
Yeah. It's OAuth entity name and requester.
How interesting. Well, let me do this. I'm going to copy this code and put it up here. And I'm just going to return a bunch of information. So I'm going to say return. And we'll start passing stuff in. And this can actually be a pretty useful troubleshooting tip if you're trying to figure stuff out, where you can just start returning arbitrary responses. So we'll say t dot, what was that? T dot get access token. So that'll at least tell us if we have a token. And then I'm going to add this into a thing called response, JSON parse for the response body. And let's just start progressively adding debug info. So this is the equivalent of logs. We just want to see something.
Wait, don't you have a cool debugger?
You know what, Chuck? You are absolutely right. We have a debugger, and I have neglected to open it. That is not acceptable. So
I'm just as guilty every day.
it is amazing how many times I forget to do that, and how many things would probably be so much simpler. So let me do this. I will throw in some breakpoints. Let's throw that in there and there. Let me throw a breakpoint in down here as well. Let's open up that debugger.
Are you still calling that? Okay.
Yeah, so that should be okay. Yeah, because I'm still calling apply token, I think. Yeah, I'm calling apply token right after I build that REST message.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're good up there. All right, and let's run this. Send it.
Will the debugger kick in on a REST message? Yes, it does.
It does. So that is beautiful. What do we have here? So we've got requests. We've got response. Can I explore these? I don't know. Let me take a look at response body. Where's the response body? Looks like something is happening here. It's not... Oh wait, we're still in apply token.
You're still in the function downstairs.
So let's go. Let's step 1, step 2.
Yep.
And now T is a scoped glide OAuth token. That's good. Step again. So now we've theoretically, we've applied the token. Step again. Now we're actually going to do it. We ran the thing. Oh, we went to catch.
Oh, the execute failed.
So what didn't it like? Let's step in. And what is EX at this point? I don't see EX.
Where is EX?
I don't see it. Here's what I should do. So this is really helpful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the debugger, and I'm just going to return in here. So let's see what that does.
So you can see it.
User not authenticated. OAuth token has expired or has not been retrieved.
Okay.
Well, that's interesting.
Helpful debugging session.
Yeah. So at least we got to a point now where we know that the token's wrong. So that sounds to me then like we've got an issue with the token that we're retrieving. That's pretty interesting. Now I can look at, so if I go to GitHub, let me go over
to who's been granted.
Yeah, I can see that. So let me go to my Batman user here. Let's open up GitHub. And we know that it worked earlier because if you recall, we actually saw responses coming back. So we can go into our profile and we can see authorized applications. Yep, there it is. There's LCHH March 10th.
You want to do a revoke
within 1 day. Yeah, I can revoke it. Let's revoke it.
Really clean the slate and start from scratch.
Yeah, I like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing in my own. So let me go to my own GitHub. And I'll go ahead and revoke that. A little more stuff going on over here. Where's my profile? Where do I edit my profile? Settings. There we go. And authorized apps. And this is something that this is kind of a common thing you're going to have to deal with anytime you're dealing with OAuth is, kind of this revocation thing is get familiar with what that looks like. Like, how do you actually go and revoke things? Because sometimes that can be a really helpful troubleshooting step. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and sign in again. Oh, and it doesn't like my session to the server. Pretty interesting. Or to ServiceNow.
Did you pull up 2 different logins at the same time?
No. It's weird. Let me just refresh this. So I'm in there as admin. I'm going to delete the token.
Yep.
And let's try sign into GitHub again. So, so we're admin. Here's GitHub. Authorize.
And that was Jan Batman. Yeah.
Yep. Now we'll go back to our console log, and it's got an object. So it seemed to kick something into gear. Oh, no, it didn't. It still says token has expired or not been retrieved.
Uh-oh.
So at this point, what we need is to see if we actually have a token, like a token string. Like, did we successfully get that in our code, which we don't know right now. And I think we're going to run a couple minutes over, but if you're game, Chuck, I think we're really close to closing this thing out. Yeah, all we have to do is just figure out why we're not passing the token to GitHub. So there is this. I'm going to run this again and say T.
Do you need wait. Do you need those set up before you do the execute? Are those statements out of order?
So
do they go before line 7?
They do. In the apply token, so what I really need to do here is I'm just going to put the breakpoints down here.
Okay.
And say that our access token.
Okay, I thought they were overriding. I forgot underscore apply token was still there.
Yeah, that's still there. This will just make it easier to break this into smaller pieces for debugging, which is kind of an interesting point. When you actually have a debugger, you need to think about how you name your variables and how you call things to make it debuggable. I mean, it makes
using extra variables can pay off.
Yeah, it really can. So, all right, so that's set again. Let's go ahead. We'll fire up the debugger. We'll go back to Explorer.
It's sad running code when you know you're going to fail.
It is. Now, I just ran that, and so we are down in this function. Let's step over. Do that 3 times. And access token. Yep, there's our token.
And what is that?
So this is the token that we got from GitHub. And in theory, if we're actually, building out this request correctly, that is what we actually need
What
to
does
pass
that
to GitHub.
sys ID correlate to? Is that our profile? Is that the user ID, the sys ID of the user?
This value here, the access token value.
Yeah.
That correlates to, that's the arbitrary value that GitHub gave us.
Looks an awful lot like a sys ID.
It does. Yeah. So this is just what GitHub gave us.
Okay.
And yeah. So let's do this. I'm going to open up this tool called Paw. It's kind of like Postman.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to try this out. Now, as luck would have it, actually, no, I don't have one ready to go. Let me just open up a new one here. Let's drag that over. Can you see that?
I can see that.
Good deal. We're going to call
your endpoint.
Yeah. Which is going to be api.github.com/user. And if I call it with nothing, it's going to predictably say that it's not okay. We've got nothing.
Yep.
So we'll just add the header manually. So authorization, bearer, and then let's go back and copy and paste that value. This one right here. And at least at that point we can isolate where, well, I didn't actually copy. Copy. There we go. Paste.
There you go.
It's the basic things that are hard.
That's why I don't program in BASIC anymore.
And that actually worked. So this tells me that there's something about how we're constructing this REST message that's not liking it very much.
That worked.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
okay, so it's not necessarily our bearer part. It's something else.
Here's what I wonder if, no, that doesn't make any sense. I was going to say that maybe there's some kind of, maybe the system is overriding it with the profile that we've specified, but I don't think that makes sense. So let me do this. I'm not going to call this in an external method. I'm just going to bring this logic up there. Thought it would be nice to separate it, but sometimes you just need to execute things in a linear fashion to simplify them. So let's do that. So we've got our client, we've got our token. We're going to set that.
Yep. I was going to say you need to change an RM to an R.
Yep. Save it. And I guess I need to tell the debugger to let this thing go.
Run.
All right. So that's done. I'm going to close the debugger because I just want to let this thing actually go all the way through. We'll send it, and it still is saying that the user is not authenticated.
So close.
It is so close.
Nobody in the chat room shouting at us.
Yeah, what are we missing? So set request header, authorization, bearer, access token. Do we have get request header? Let me just do this. I want to I'm just doing this because I want to see. I want to see is there something happening after the fact. So auth equals that, and we'll just break on it. Open our debugger again. Save it. Run it. Back to the debugger. This is our new workflow. So auth, bearer. There it is.
It's not bearer colon or anything, is it?
No, it should just be bearer space.
Okay.
And we can, let me just verify that on the paw side. I know paw is probably a little bit small, but if we look at the, there's the header as it's going out.
Yeah.
There's the raw value, and that worked. So
connection, get user.
I wonder. No, that should be fine. I was going to say we're getting this method. I wonder, do we need to set? I can't edit code in the debugger. That would be cool, but that's not there yet.
That'd be dangerous, but okay.
I mean, theoretically, I don't know.
Theoretically, Record Watcher will keep everybody in sync, right?
r.set request. No. Set HTTP method. Let's try that. I mean, that should already be implied because we're getting a named REST message, and that shouldn't be a problem.
You shouldn't have to worry about endpoint or the method or any of the other stuff.
Yeah. So let's try that.
But should being the operative word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, still user not authenticated.
Weird.
So here's what we know. We know that we are successfully generating different tokens for different users.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. We know that we have completely changed the context of where these tokens are getting generated. So we're generating tokens for users instead of methods, which is good. And let's just take one more pass through this. I hate to leave this thing open, but
it might be our tip next week.
this. And the interesting thing, what's really weird about this is that I actually have this working. This is functioning in a different app. Actually, Chuck, you've seen that app. And with GitHub, and it's successfully going out there and it's doing per token, per user tokens. And
you want to look at that code real quick? See if you can spot the differences.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, okay.
And so let me copy in and paste. See, not 100% of what we wrote today was on the fly, but this is an exact copy of the process of applying that particular thing. The only difference here, I wonder if that OAuth profile ID, if I screwed that up somehow.
Okay, where was OAuth profile ID defined in the other one? It was a this, so you've got to have it somewhere.
Yeah, and so I hard-coded that, which should be coming from, if we go into here.
Oh, wait.
Set HTTP. It's just letting me, wait a second. What is going on here? Who am I? I'm having an existential crisis. Let's go to OAuth. Application registry,
right.
GitHub.
Right.
Here's the profile.
Yeah.
And that is what it should be. So let's copy that.
Okay.
Paste it. And it did not change.
Oh.
Yep. So that's the same.
Okay. Good check.
What else is going on? Got. Did I misspell authorization?
I don't think so.
Authorization. There we go.
Copied out of paw.
Yeah, let me do that. It never ceases to amaze me how head scratching some of the simplest things can be in this profession. There's always something. So copy, paste, that's the same.
Same. Had
Let's
to check.
save it. Check it one more time. Let me reload this. Send it. Nope.
Nada.
Nope. So the theory here, my theory is that there's something happening with this REST message. There's something about the definition of it that's somehow overriding the authorization token that I'm sending out. That's my theory. I'll probably need to verify that. You know what? Let's do one more thing. Let's just take this out entirely. We're going to say no authentication on the REST message itself. Let's make sure it's not doing anything.
That should definitely fail, right? Because there's no authentication.
Well, basically, this is just saying that the definition itself doesn't specify authentication, but we can still override that in code. So,
I see. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Whoa.
Look at that. So that was it. There I guess we learned something today. I'm so happy that we're closing this loop. So if you're doing this and you want to dynamically apply your own tokens, make sure you don't specify a profile on the REST message itself, because it's going to try to override that. Which I guess makes, do it in the script.
I would have thought script would have won that battle.
I would have thought the same thing, and that's pretty weird. I'll have to go back, and I'll put this in the post session notes. I'll have to go back and look to see whether or not the what am I trying to say here? Whether or not the code that I have in the other application is actually specifying that in the REST message or not.
I'd have a sit down with your boss.
I will. Yeah, I work for the product manager that handles this stuff. So There we go. So let's see if we can actually do our real verification now. Take a moment to compose myself.
Does this apply to the other app, the one you already had working? Says Apoorv. I think that's what you need to check, right?
That's what I need to check. There's a possibility that I accidentally stumbled into the right solution on the other app, because on the other app, I actually didn't even set up a profile directly on the REST message. I believe that it's been a while since I looked at it. Okay. So it's entirely possible that I accidentally just never set it, and therefore I didn't run into the problem. So I'm glad we ran into it today, so that other people that run into this can not go through the same thing.
Just scan 15 minutes ahead in the video.
Exactly. So now we're hitting the endpoint directly. This is hitting the endpoint as Josh, and I'm getting the JN Batman, but that's because I logged in as Josh. Okay.
Now I need to authenticate as the other user.
Yeah, so let me go to the Batman window. And in the Batman window, let me just see if there's anything. This is probably going to fail. That's okay. So I need to now go over as Able. Mm-hmm. And as Able, this is probably going to fail. No?
Nope. Too much success.
Too much success indeed. So in this whole process, let me just pull up. Here's what I'm going to do. We're going to do one last reset. And if this reset doesn't...
Yeah, how did you not have a token for Able?
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense at all.
But now you have no token, so somebody, hopefully Able, has to authenticate.
Right. So if I go back now and I refresh this is going to fail, I would hope. And it does, because we have bad credentials.
Yeah.
So that's good. So now we'll go ahead and we will launch it again if I can find the window. Actually, I don't have that window open anymore. So
you don't need to do a revoke or anything on GitHub?
I don't, because what's going to happen here is, so this is going to automatically just get me a JNereus token.
Gotcha.
Because, it's not, because I haven't authorized it yet. So I'll authorize
but that's authorizing as JN Batman, it said on that screen.
Well, so JN Batman is the owner of the app. Okay. And so it's telling me that JN Batman wrote the app, but I'm still JNereus actually getting a token for that particular app.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's okay. Now I'll refresh if I can find, there we go, current user. And this is what I want. I'm getting JNereus as the login. And now for the final test.
Final test.
The final. But is it the final?
We hope.
Let's refresh this. And this is giving me JNereus still. So that's pretty interesting. But if I generate my own token, what happens?
Yeah, you can borrow the other token until you get your own. That's nice.
Yeah, that doesn't sound right.
That's the friendly way of doing access.
There. Got my login, and I will sign in.
Yep.
And there we go. Before I actually refresh it, I'm going to look at the tokens, and I'm going to see that I have one token.
One token. Okay. What happened to the other one?
You know what I wonder is does impersonation...
Is it truly impersonating?
Yeah.
We have seen oddities before.
We certainly have. But you know what I can do?
I told you should have bought that other browser.
Yeah. So I'm here. Got my token. What is going on?
The good news is our stock price is up 20 cents today.
Ooh, it certainly is. Well, you know what? I don't have an answer for this right now. So what I can do is I'm just going to sort of recap, because I don't want to end on this thing where we don't know what we were actually trying to accomplish.
Eric would like us to restate the use case.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. So
segue into the recap.
Absolutely. So the use case here is that we have multiple users in ServiceNow that all may want to interact with that other API as themselves. not as ServiceNow. And so the traditional integration scenario ends up passing a single username and password.
Yeah, you have some sort of service account or whatever you call it.
And so everybody that's in ServiceNow is then interacting with that other API as that centralized user. And so in this case, we're dynamically interacting with that other API as each of those individual users that are logged in. Each of them has their own token, and that's what's going on. So so that's what's happening. You know, there's clearly something. Oh, you know what? Could it be as simple as this? Could it be that G_user ID is its client side, and so it's cached in the browser, and so it's generating a token for the other user?
Maybe. It's a worthwhile theory. 30-second test, right?
Yep. Shift re-click, click sign in.
So shift refresh does a cache clear?
It should. Or more importantly, let's see if I do right click on the refresh button. No right click. Well, there we go. Sign in to GitHub. Nope. So that's clearly not it.
Okay.
We'll figure this out. But basically, the end result that we're not showing you right now is one token per user, and then each of those users interacts with that other API. And that's critical for any sort of application like that. Other scenarios that you might run into this would be things like maybe interacting with Dropbox. So maybe you want users to be able to push files to their own Dropbox. Seems like a pretty bad idea in a lot of enterprise environments, but you know, just kind of the theory behind it is that each user has their own token to interact. So with that, let me go ahead and stop sharing. We will follow up on this. This is something we're not going to leave this alone. We're going to find out what happened here. And it's also a local instance, so it could be some funky thing going on there.
Could be.
Because I can tell you, it's working in the other app that I can't show anybody. But that's okay. So we're back. And let's talk about our beers.
It's gone.
It's empty.
It's empty.
And you've made more progress than I have.
You were busy.
I was very busy. But, you know, about 30% through this. Delicious as always. I think I've reviewed it before. This time it's a 4. How's that?
All right. I give Dos Equis a good solid 3.5. It's a nice afternoon coding beer.
Good stuff.
Are you speaking at CreatorCon? What does your agenda look like at this point? Just to get people excited about that. Yeah,
you know, I am speaking at CreatorCon. I've got 3 sessions. One of those sessions is about OAuth.
Surprise. Sky's blue. What else is exciting?
We'll be talking about adapting the My Work Node.js app. So basically getting outside of ServiceNow and how do you interact with auth code grant flow in ServiceNow outside of the platform. I've got a session on working with webhooks. So we're going to do some fun things with webhooks and scripted REST APIs, and a session about external JavaScript libraries. So how do you get libraries into the system that didn't originate here? Maybe it was written for Node or it was written for a browser, and maybe it doesn't work when you copy and paste it into a script include. What are the things you can do to actually make that thing work? So those are my sessions as of now. What about you?
I have 2 not live coding happy hours, 2 Tech Nows. Sorry, I'm getting my shows mixed up. 2 live Tech Nows in the Developer Theater Tuesday. I'm looking at the schedule right now because Mr. Martin sent this to us. Tuesday from 12:40 to 1:20, and Wednesday, same time frame, 12:40 to 1:20. We're going to be talking about building applications at light speed. First one's going to be no code and maybe some low code, and the second one's going to be more advanced stuff. So we're going to be building that out. And we also we haven't put a real good name on this, the App Clinic, App Cafe, something. We want you to bring a spreadsheet, and we're going to turn it into an application. We're going to solve your low-hanging fruit. Let's get that spreadsheet into a system of record and put a process around it real fast. Walk up one-on-one. There's going to be a table of us that will just help you do this, and you can walk away with either an update set or a repo or something that you can have to take back and build on that application.
I love it. That sounds really awesome.
Looking forward to it. Hope to see you guys at Knowledge. Until then, we'll be back with more live coding happy hour next week, maybe?
Hopefully next week, and hopefully conclusion to this this unknown thing. Just can't have that. But yeah, thank you all for watching today. If you have any feedback, we know that we've been jumping all over the place with our technical implementation of how we stream. So if you have feedback, if you liked the way things look today, if you liked them better in past weeks, let us know. We are very interested in that. And we hope to see y'all soon.
All righty. Thanks. Bye.